Are you bad at Duel Links? Me too. Actually, most of us are. I'm convinced there's like 3 people in this game that are actually good. Exceptional game knowledge, deck building, decision-making skills, while the rest of us just kinda pretend to be like them. But even us peasants can learn to be adequate at the game. So today, I want to share some of the tips that I've learned that have helped me go from getting slapped around in silver once upon a time to being able to cog, if I have time. As always, new players, learn what you can. Old players, correct my tips and share yours. Let's get started.
Mindset.
If your goal is to win, you might have to get rid of certain mindsets you have. There's a couple I've seen throughout the years and even held some of them myself when I was a new player. I don't use skills, I don't need to rely on them to win. I will never look up a deck list online, I can come up with my own ideas. I don't use the self-checkout line, I like to see my groceries go down the belt. Okay, that last one's kinda based. But the point here is it's okay to have boundaries. Even high-level players have them. Some players have a favorite deck they make work in every meta. Some players refuse to play a tier 1 deck. You're allowed to set any boundaries you want for yourself when playing this game, but if you find yourself being stuck in the lower ranks, unable to leave, you may need to be a little less restrictive with yourself.
Deck choice.
There is a vast difference in power levels between different decks in this game. It can be like watching 2 toddlers fight each other, except one of them is a 20-year-old gorilla. There's nothing wrong with playing as a toddler, but you can't be surprised when you keep losing to the gorilla. The biggest improvement you'll see at most levels will come from what deck you're playing. For example, if my opponent is playing Orchist and I'm playing Celtic Control, regardless of player's skill, if my opponent just hits the yes button every time it comes up, they're gonna win. While you don't have to pick the strongest deck of a format, if this is your first time trying to make this push of your own abilities, I recommend you pick a meta deck that has the tools to deal with the competition. For non-tournament play, you can find what are considered to be the strong decks of the format in the Duel Links meta website under Power Rankings. Most important things to consider are deck power, gem price, and whether or not it's going to be disintegrated by a ban list.
Knowing thyself, or at least thy deck.
Even a strong deck is only as good as a person driving it. Me in an F-22 Raptor and me in a Cessna 182 would have the same results in a dogfight, because I don't know how to turn on a plane. Different decks have different levels of knowledge you need to play them. If you play a small brain deck, like me, all you really need to know is one stupid OTK combo and how to set 3 paths. If you play one of the bigger brain decks in the format, then you'll need to make real decisions in the game, such as different combo routes, ending boards, and resource management. Most decks have at least one bread and butter combo and at least one way to deal with each problem. Make sure you know how to do those. When you feel yourself no longer saying things like, I should have done this instead, or I could have won that one, or I'll just set 1 pass, I'm sure it'll be fine, you can feel comfortable saying that you've learned your deck.
Meta knowledge.
At the higher level of this game, you can't just play cards and expect to win. Most decks have game plans that you need to account for each time you put down a card. In general, you need to know what decks you'll be playing against, probably these guys, what their game plan is, and how your deck beats them. For example, if I'm playing against Orchists and I'm playing Madolches, my plan going first is to try surviving a turn by negating Recycler, interrupting some of their graveyard effects, or if I'm desperate, praying. The plan going second is to use the power of pastries and back row removal to send their field back to the bakery. If I can't do either of these things, then I basically just lose. Know what each deck's win conditions are and how to get to yours before your opponent can get to theirs.
Know your enemy's general deck build.
As you start to face players with completed decks, you'll find yourself needing to know information about their deck before you even start playing. If you're playing against Orcus, for example, you can assume they have at least 2 Galateas and 2 Ding Dongs in their extra deck, meaning you can't just expect to get rid of one without the second one coming out on the following turn. Knowing and accounting for all the cards in your opponent's deck can be the difference between you ruining their game plan permanently or them coming back and killing you next turn. Which brings me to my next topic.
Account for every card.
If you ever watch good players in this game, you'll notice that they account for the possibility of every card in play, including in their opponent's hand, and then they make deductions based on them. Did a Blue Eyes player use Melody to add an alternative and regular Blue Eyes to their hand? Well, now you know 2 cards in their hand. Knowing a vanilla Blue Eyes is there means that if they play a Dragon Spirit of White, they can quick effect tribute it to summon that Blue Eyes. If not, on the following turn, if they simply add a second Blue Eyes from the grave to their hand, they will be able to activate their skill no problem. Accounting for and keeping track of these things is what's called knowing the board state, and will limit the amount of unknowns you have to deal with in any duel. Just hope you don't have to keep track of these things.
Know the conditions to removal cards.
Similar to dating preferences, different types of cards have different conditions for cards they can be used on. For example, Karma Cut can only hit face-up opponent monsters. Psy-Frame Lord Zeta can only be used on special summon monsters in attack position. Even the Galaxy Eyes Exceed combo have their own special conditions. This one steals face-up monsters. This one can destroy face-up cards on your opponent's side of the field. This one can destroy one of anything on any field. Trying to Zeta my Galaxy Eyes combo? Too bad, I'll just play them all in defense position until I can destroy it. Knowing what your opponent can and can't do can help you play around the different removals they have. Unless it's this thing, can't really play around that.
Learn how Yu-Gi-Oh! Card text works.
Some people say that Yu-Gi-Oh! Text is hard. I disagree. It's as simple as enrolling in your nearest law school, studying for 4 to 8 years, passing your bar exam, and maybe, just maybe, you can finally figure out how this thing works. Okay, obviously that's a bit of exaggeration, but especially for newer players, some of the essays written under these cards can be a bit daunting. However, knowing how a card effect is applied and how it interacts with other cards can sometimes give you the winning edge in a duel, especially in situations you've never been in before. There's a lot of existing tutorials on this already. This one from Davinator is a classic, and this Duel Logs one is great too. But as a start, you're gonna want to know about cost and effect, targeting versus non-targeting interactions, when versus if effects, hard and soft once per turns, and in my opinion, the dumbest mechanic of this game, the difference between the target and it. There's a couple of other nuances here and there, but this will cover like 90% of your interactions.
Summary.
Before I leave, I want to remember to say that winning isn't everything, and it's certainly not the only way to have fun. If you enjoy playing the game the way you want to play it, you can throw these tips right out the window. I'm happy for you. But if you ever do want to give it a shot, despite the daily complaining you'll see about it, high-level gameplay can be a lot of fun too. Thank you folks for watching. I don't have an outro for my non-degenerate videos, so I want to remind everyone to think critically in your lives and be nice to people who deserve it. Have a great day.